Welcome aboard Imagination Skyway, your guided tour through the worlds of Disney and Imagineering. I'm Matthew Krull, your host on this panoramic journey, and I'm on a mission to better understand the stories and places we love and the people who bring them to life. The Disney Destiny sets sail on its inaugural cruise exactly 2 months from today, if you're listening to the day this episode goes live. And my guests on today's episode had the opportunity to visit this new addition to the Disney Cruise Line fleet while it was still under construction in Papenburg, Germany, and to witness a sneak peek of the brand new Broadway-style stage show coming to this ship, Hercules. In this episode, we'll discuss what to expect with the Disney Destiny and what my guests learned about the design and development of this ship. As you fasten your seatbelt, I encourage you to take out your mobile devices and search for Imagination Skyway on your favorite social media app. Better yet, if you're looking for ad-free episodes, bonus content, or the ability to comment directly on the podcast, head to patreon.com/imaginationsskyway, where you can sign up for a free account or a premium subscription. And if this episode leaves you yearning for a trip to Disney or any other destination, reach out to our partners and sponsors at KMV Travel by visiting kmvtravel.com/skyway. As we begin our journey, please remain seated, keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times, and enjoy your journey aboard Imagination Skyway. For you Disney Cruise Line fans, I'm sure you're all anxiously awaiting the brand new Disney Destiny that has its inaugural sailing coming up in, if you're listening to the show live, just a couple of months in November of 2025. And while I did not get the opportunity to visit the Disney Destiny under construction myself, I have a couple of close friends who I work a lot with and have worked a lot with over the last few years, who some of you may know, who I'll introduce in just a second, but they had the chance, one of them to go to Germany to see the ship under construction, and the other to go to Toronto to get a behind-the-scenes look at a rehearsal for the new show that's coming to the Disney Destiny. And I'm giving you a lot of setup, but let me go ahead and introduce my guests, and those are Steph and Danny from WDW Magazine. Welcome back to the show to both of you.
Thanks, Matt. It's always a pleasure to be here, and we can't wait to tell everyone what we've been learning about the Disney Destiny.
I'm so excited for this ship, and I'm a princess person, so for the wish for me, I was like, oh, this is the best. And then I'm a parks person, so I was like, treasure, this is the best. But I think I might be most excited about the Destiny, and I can't wait to tell you about it.
That says a lot, and I'll be honest, I know that we had a very brief, I wouldn't even call it a conversation, email trail before this to talk a little bit about some of the things you experienced. And it definitely whet my appetite for what we're going to discuss today. And all the questions I have are very authentic to what I'm hoping to learn about your experiences, as I try my best with every episode to make these as authentic as possible, just following my own trail of curiosity. Before we do that, though, I should probably throw out some rapid fire questions. I like to do that for every episode now, just to start us out. So I'll start with you, Steph, first. And then Danny, I'll ask you the same question. The first question would be, what is your, currently, for the ships that are out there right now, what is your favorite Disney Cruise Line ship in the fleet?
I actually think it's the Fantasy right now. They all have something to offer, and I love my best ship would be a little like hodgepodge of all the different ships mixed together. I spent the most time on the Fantasy. I've done a couple longer cruises there, and if I'm being honest, I really like the coffee setup, and I really like the adult bar setup on the Fantasy, so that's why it wins out.
Danny, how about you?
My response is similar. So the very first ship that we had the opportunity to sail on was the Dream. And maybe it's just because that was my first one and I fell in love with the whole DCL experience. But like Steph, there are some things about the older generation of the cruise ships that I enjoy more. You know, of course, if this was a magic fantasy world and I could, pick and choose elements from the different ships, I'd build my own hodgepodge dream ship. But I think on the balance, I'm going to say the Dream.
I love that, the fantasy and the dream. And I've heard there's a bias for a lot of Disney Cruise Line fans that you lean towards your first ship, that there's something about that magical experience that it becomes a favorite for you.
I fell in love so fast with the cruising. I'd never been on any other cruise line my whole life. I had never sailed on any one. And then it was in 2019 we got the opportunity to do a very maritime sailing on the Dream, and like we hadn't even pulled out of the port. And I was already saying to Steph, like, I think we can like put a deposit down on a future cruise.
It happened. We hadn't even done the sail away party or muster drill. We had one plate of food at the buffet and he wasn't even finished. And he was like, we're coming back. I was like, you don't know if you're getting seasick. He's like, nope, we're done. This is where I live now.
Yeah, it was just, they got me. It was magical. I breathed the air and like the staff were so great and the ship is beautiful. And I was like, this is the life for me.
That's the Disney difference. That's fantastic. I love that. All right, let's do two more quick questions, both kind of related. So I asked about your favorite ship. Next question, your favorite, I'll go to you first again, Steph, your favorite itinerary that you've personally sailed on so far.
Ooh. Well, I haven't personally sailed on this, but how did we do? Yeah, you know what? I have sailed on this. We're about to do it again, literally this weekend. It is actually Bahamas itinerary that goes to both Lookout and Castaway, because I haven't done a ton of different itineraries, but also I really feel like if I was doing a European itinerary or something like that, I'd want more time in those ports. But what I want on a Disney cruise is to go to those Disney islands.
Yeah. Danny, do you have a favorite? Is it the same?
It's the same. We haven't done a double dip to Castaway.
That's the dream.
That would be like my favorite ones are the ones where we do Castaway and Lookout. But if I was really building my dream itinerary, I would do double Castaway.
Well, this leads into my final question for rapid fire. Do you have a dream itinerary? We'll stick with what exists, and because I'm sure we could dream up a lot of different potential itineraries, but from those that you know that do exist, what's the number one on your list that you'd love to do?
I'd really like to do the Norway cruise that they have.
It looks beautiful.
Sailing in and out of the fjords, and I know that they have some of the like different European character costumes and things like that on board, which I think is just so unique.
Yeah. And I'm just aching to get on an Alaskan itinerary. I really
similar, but half a world away.
Yeah, similar.
Yeah.
But like I'm really interested in the wildlife excursions. I'd love to get the chance to see some of the bears. I'd love to try and do some like eagle photography. I want to go see the glaciers up close. I think the Alaska itineraries look so beautiful and majestic. Plus, you also get Mickey and Minnie in those exclusive costumes. And Donald. And like for people who like the deep cuts, they bring out like Brother Bear, like Coda. I think that's his name. Like there's some like real deep Disney cuts that only show up on Alaska itineraries.
That's amazing. I think that every Disney Cruise Line fan listening is now super excited about our conversation about the Disney Destiny as we're thinking back to previous trips we love and thinking ahead to potential trips in the future. So I'll have Steph probably walk through a lot of this because, Steph, you were the one to head to Germany for this experience.
Yeah. You got to do the really cool part of this.
Yeah.
What I did was cool, and I can't wait to tell people about it. But like Steph got to go where no one gets to go.
Yeah, and you traveled a lot farther than Danny did.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
Had to break out your passport for this one. So, all right, other than the visit to the Meyerwerft shipyard in Papenburg, which I really want to talk about, I first want to hear, how was your trip to Germany overall? Did you get to experience anything else while you were there? I know it's not like going to a major city, but I'm sure that it's still a very interesting experience.
Well, let me tell you, like the very short version is I had a very hectic travel time. My flight actually got canceled while I was on the plane, and I didn't know if I was even going to make it there in time. There were 7 media who were going, and we were all supposed to arrive on Thursday morning at 7 a.m. And then the event started Friday morning. So we were supposed to have some time to like settle in and enjoy the town, and everybody else got to do that. But I got overnight at the Newark airport and then a couple hours at the Atlanta airport and then another flight to Amsterdam. So I actually was running right up to the wire. I literally landed at 6 a.m. Friday and a driver picked me up and we drove as fast as we could straight to the shipyard, bypassed everything. But I got to see a lot of beautiful European scenery along the way, tiny churches and fields and meadows and cows. It was lovely. And I pulled up at the gates and hopped out, and they basically threw some PPE on me, hard hat, steel toes, all of that, Viz vest, all of that. And they were just like, go through that door. I did. And within seconds, they were starting the event, which was kicking off, surprise to all of us, with the steel cutting for the Wish Class 4 ship.
Our reps at Disney really came through. Steph got caught up. Your listeners may or may not have been aware. Early in August, there was like a nationwide Delta?
No, United.
United. There was like a nationwide United outage, and that caused all kinds of chaos and canceled the international flight. And they really came through, rerouting. Steph had to fly from Newark to Atlanta to catch a different flight to get to Amsterdam, where there was a driver.
All from Delta, which is Matt's favorite.
Anyway,
Delta saved the day. I told you they would. I know we were chatting about it. I said I guarantee Delta will come through for you, and they sure did. So the show is not sponsored by Delta, by the way. It's my favorite.
But it could be.
You're interested.
It could be Delta if you're listening. I'd love to someday.
But yeah, so Steph, I think she missed out on some of the scenic parts and the time to get over the jet lag, but she made it for all of the official event ceremony.
I did have about an hour and a half though after the big tour. So we did the big tour on Friday and the float out on Saturday, and we had like a group dinner on Friday night. So I had about an hour and a half on Friday late afternoon where I walked through the town just to see what it was like, took some videos, took some photos. It's like a tiny little European town with a canal with vintage. It's they've built boats there for centuries. So they have all of these tiny little historic boats. Tiny, they look like full-size pirate ships basically, but like tiny little boats on display in the canal, lined with flowers, little bistros and gelato stores just lining the streets, like church bells ringing.
It's very picturesque. Beautiful. We did some research on Meyer Werft, on the shipbuilding company, and they've been in this place, in this town of Papenburg, for it was like 300 years or
230 since 1795.
Yeah, 200 plus years, and they've always been shipbuilders. So obviously it used to be wooden ships with big sails and stuff, but they've kept modernizing and innovating, and so they've always been shipbuilders. They just do it now on a totally different scale.
That's incredible, just to think about the history in that spot and to think about the ships that were constructed in the past. And I'm sure just looking at the shipyard, thinking about the equipment they're using and the size of the ships that they're building and how far they've come 230 years later.
Absolutely.
That's got to be an incredible experience. I love the little description of Papenburg too. It sounds like a place that is worth visiting if you're especially going to be near the area, to feel that connection, at least as a Disney fan. I starting a few years ago, started talking a little bit more and trying to incorporate it into the podcast. And I'm still leaning into that direction, but I do believe that just about anywhere you go in the world, or there are at least hundreds or more places in the world where you can have a connection to Disney in some way. And that just gives an example of one of the ways that you can. I mean, one of my favorite places to go, which is not very far, I don't have to hop on a plane, I just drive a few hours, is in the Berkshires in Massachusetts. They have the Norman Rockwell Museum, and Joanna and I both love Norman Rockwell artwork, and Norman Rockwell and Walt Disney had a mutually shared admiration for each other. They both had this similar impact on American art and culture. And so it just goes to show that, again, like examples like these, you don't have to go very far. You don't have to just go to Disney to get a Disney experience. You can experience Disney and get that as your entry point into other cultures around the world. So I love that.
Absolutely. We've actually done a few articles in the magazine where we've traveled to France or Japan or China. And then when you go back to Epcot, to those pavilions, you're like, wow, I understand why the architecture is like this. I understand the costumes now. And that's been a really cool experience.
For sure. So let's dive into the few different ways we can go with this. I want to start with the itinerary. You said this was over the course of 2 days. So what was the blueprints of the day, or the main highlights or itinerary for those 2 days, and who led the tour?
Yeah. So on Friday, the very first thing that we did was we witnessed the steel cutting for the fourth Wish class ship that's going to be setting sail in 2 years. And so there was the Joe Schott, who's the president of Disney Signature Experiences. Carly Scott, who's going to be the cruise director, the inaugural cruise director on the Disney Destiny. Mickey Mouse was there. And I am not going to be able to pronounce these names very well, so I'm not even going to try. But one of the project managers and also the CEO of Mayor Werft. So they came out, they gave cute little speeches talking about like the symbiotic relationship really between Meyerwerft and Disney, and how they have like grown together in building all of these ships. Mickey comes out, he presses the big button, some fireworks go off, and then that actually started the chain reaction of the steel cutting actually beginning, and we can watch that through a window. So that was only a few minutes. It was a very quick ceremony. But something really cool is that they cut out a ship, like a small ship silhouette that the executives can all sign. And we didn't know, but they cut out a second one. And later in the day, they presented that to the media group that was there, and we all got to sign it. So that's going to be backstage somewhere on the Wish 4 forever and ever.
Part of history. I love that. That's so cool.
So then we met with Philip Janot, I think is how you pronounce his last name, but he is with Imagineering, and he is really a liaison between Meyerwerft and Imagineering. He works for Imagineering, but he's all about new design, new ship build, all of that. So he took us on. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to interject for a second. I don't know if you've watched, there's a National Geographic special about the making of the Treasure.
And making of the Wish.
I have seen it. And the Wish. They have the same one,
You'll see Philip in there as he talks about the Meyerwerft shipyard in the town of Papenburg. And we were watching this documentary to prepare. And when Steph came home, I was like, did you get to meet Philip?
I did.
I recognized his name as soon as you said it. I thought that was definitely from that documentary. He was definitely from that documentary.
He is so passionate. He is honestly maybe my favorite Imagineer that I have ever met.
That says a lot.
He loves all the like nerdy logistics things that I love, but he is so passionate, so detailed. Like I could talk to him for hours and days probably. And he was very generous with his time. He probably spent we didn't have our phones and everything with us because we were not allowed to take any backstage footage whatsoever. So they were all bagged and left. But so I don't know exactly, but I would say it was probably about 2 hours that we spent with him. And he took us through the entire factory floor, essentially, of the shipyard. So we saw, he pointed out every single step, you're going to cut the steel and then you're going to shave it down so it's perfect. And then it's going to get welded, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All those building blocks getting assembled. And then the kind of grand finale of our time with him was walking into Hall 6, which is the building dock they actually have two building docks at Meyerwerft. One is for the big ships like the Destiny, and then they have one that's their original dock that was for smaller ships. They didn't build the Wonder and the Magic, but it would be for ships more like that size. And when they go to dry dock, I'm pretty sure that that's what they use. They didn't tell me that, so that's just my assumption. Anyway, so we walk in, the Destiny's there. She looks beautiful. We had to walk around, see the bow. They're filling the dry dock with water because float out is the next day. And then we got handed off to Claire Weiss, who is a portfolio creative executive, I think, with Walt Disney Imagineering also. And she toured us on the ship. So we got to we had badges that were, associated with our passports and everything because they have to make sure they know where everybody is at all the time. So we actually had to boop on and off the ship with this barcode that we had, walk up this gangplank into what is the tender lobby, but just looks like a construction zone.
What's hard to convey, just when you're hearing about these experiences is the size and scale of this operation. So Steph's talking about having to like tap in and tap off each time you board the ship. That's because they have up to like 2,000 workers at any given time, and they need to keep track of who's on board and who's on dry land, and so
Mhm.
there's like a gated turnstile just to go up the gangway to get on the ship.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And then she toured us throughout the ship, which I'm sure you're going to ask me some more questions about, so I won't give away all the details. But we got to meet a number of other Imagineers on board in different areas with projects that they were working on. And then after all of that, we had a little lunch, and then Claire and Philip actually gave us about an hour long. I will call it a lecture. That sounds boring, but to me, it was fascinating. It was really like being back in
Like a TED
university.
talk. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they gave us a really cool presentation on I would phrase it as like the more business side of how this gets done. So we saw the construction side, we saw kind of the vision and imagineering side, but they talked to us really about like, hey, this is what happens when we first have an idea. Here's exactly all the steps that we need to take, and then we enter into contract with Meyer Werft, and then here's all the stuff that happens there. Here are the milestones, like the float out, or the sea trials, or the flag exchange, and they took us through that whole process, and also showed us kind of some like early vision boards and concept art for all of the Wish class ships, not the new one, but the three that we know about, to kind of say like, hey, here's a sketch of what we thought the carpet might look like in the Wish, and here's what it actually ended up looking like. So that was really fun.
It's important to understand at this point in the process of constructing one of these ships, it's not yet Disney's ship. It's Meyer Werft's ship. Disney has commissioned them, and there's an agreement about the general shape and size and layout and all of that stuff. But it's not till later in the process when Meyer Werft officially hands the ship over to Disney.
That's after sea trials,
Yeah.
right? And Disney is special in that they have so much IP on board. They want so much control of what the ship is going to look like and how it's going to feel and interact with guests, that most other cruise companies will have a few people who come in and periodically check on things. But through the entire build process, Imagineering is there walking the ship, checking things out every single day, so that they can be like, whoa, this isn't coming together the way that we thought it was going to be, or we know we picked this wood for the bar, but it is way too dark. What else can we get in here? So they have a lot of immediate say in how things are essentially coming together and being completed as the ship is being completed.
Matt, you might already know this, but I learned from Steph's trip that there is a WDI, an Imagineering outpost in Germany,
Yeah.
because of how many cruise ships are in the works and how directly involved Disney stays in the process. It doesn't make sense to be, constantly flying people back and forth from Burbank. So there is a WDI Germany campus. I had no idea.
I had no idea either.
It's really cool that they do that. And it makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense to your point, Danny. You can't just keep going back and forth. I mean, you want people to be positioned where that ship is being built and to have it's very different when you're, Steph, to your point, walking around, seeing anything that doesn't look like it's heading in the right direction, or you want to provide guidance, or even if you decide it is heading in the direction that you had intended, but it makes sense seeing it in person to maybe shift to another creative direction.
Sure.
Exactly.
Or maybe you've got an idea to plus something and you
Yes.
want to be there to build on it.
Absolutely.
So
So that was really the first day. And then the second day was the float out. So it's very exciting. You go there in the morning. The garage doors, I don't really know what to call them, the hall doors, the docking bay doors, they're open, and you can see the Destiny fully inside the building dock. And then at a certain point, a tugboat comes along and hooks up to back of it in this case. They brought the stern out first, and they very slowly, it takes about 2 to 3 hours. Ours was a little closer to 2 hours, but they very slowly back the ship out with this tugboat. The engines are on the ship, but if they were to use them for this, it would like rumble the entire building, which you don't want, right? So they pull it out very gently. Once it's almost halfway out, they kind of do some fireworks. They play a song. It's very festive. They finish kind of pulling it out, and then they start to tug it kind of adjacent on almost a diagonal, because that's where their outfitting pier is, and that's where the ship will be finished before it heads off to sea trials. And once it's almost in position there, they did another song, some more fireworks, pyrotechnics, and that was really nice. And then for the media, the public can actually come watch this.
Yes, Steph got to experience the float out as part of a VIP group. Disney had set up, some amenities, some hospitality. Minnie Mouse showed up for photo opportunities. But where the shipyard is positioned, there's a publicly accessible parking lot, there's parkland nearby, and locals and visitors, it was almost like a tailgate party atmosphere.
There were food
That's
trucks, cool. Like it was really, really festive. There were thousands of people there just coming to see the glimpse of this ship.
Meyer Werft is a huge economic pillar of the immediate community in Papenburg and the surrounding areas.
I can imagine.
Whether people work directly for the shipyard or, they're the teachers who educate the children of the people who work for someone.
Dentists, the grocery store clerks.
Everyone has a connection in some way or another. So there's definitely a sense of pride when these massive projects hit these milestone moments. And it was very, the atmosphere, it's a party, it's festive, it's exciting, it's quite electric.
I love that. So, Steph, you queued me up a little bit about some of the things that you learned. And while I don't have any, we could go in a lot of specific directions. What were some of the most interesting facts that you learned from this tour in this couple of days?
Okay. So there's so many. So if
I can imagine,
direct me as you like. But so one thing that I didn't realize, because I said a little while ago, the steel cutting happened, and in 2 years that ship's going to be in the water. That's true. But it's actually about 5 years of the pre-contract and then the contract phase. So everything at this point, once they started steel cutting, they know all the designs. They're in a contract with Meyer Werft. They know they've ordered statues. They've done a whole bunch of stuff. But then that build process is going to take about less than 2 years, but then there's, the outfitting and the sea trials and everything. Something else, I thought Meyer Werft built the whole thing. I thought Disney was just like, here's some blueprints, enjoy. But that's really not the case. They build the ship, yes, absolutely. And that can include things like installing carpets and lighting fixtures and all of that. But they actually rely on a lot of other companies to do things. So if you've ever seen even a photo of of a Disney cruise ship, on the side it has the name, right? Disney Wish, Disney Destiny. Meyer Werft doesn't make that. There's a sign maker in Germany that they contract to make that. The statue of T'Challa, who's going to be in the atrium in the Grand Hall of the Destiny, that's not made by Meyer Werft. So there are all these things. 80% or almost, they told us almost everything is made in Europe, and 80% of that is made in Germany. And a lot of the things are made quite locally, like that sign maker is very close to where the shipyard is. A few kilometers down the road is actually where they build all of the staterooms. And if you've seen those Nat Geo documentaries, you've probably seen this, but it's kind of like a car factory where the staterooms are just kind of moving along and everybody's doing their bits and pieces. And then every 15 minutes, one pops off the line. They cart them down the road and they slide them into place with everything inside: curtains, mattress, bed frame. They basically slide it in. They bolt the bed frame to the wall, plop down the mattress, roll out the carpet, and it's done.
What blew my mind about this stateroom construction process is, so they happen on a big long assembly line with everyone working in stages, but they actually build them upside down. if you think about how they have to install, there's all kinds of duct work and electrical wires and all of that stuff. A lot of it runs through the ceiling to be out of the guest way. And rather than having the workers like climbing up on ladders and working overhead, they assemble the rooms upside down with the ceiling as the floor when they install all of that necessary equipment, and then rotate the stateroom when they gets to the finishing step and then load it into its position in the ship.
Not just the stateroom, any of the kind of the different building blocks of the ship are built that way. And it takes 5 or 10 minutes for them to actually rotate it over, which is extremely quick, in my opinion. If you've seen those documentaries, the ship is really built up of 100 different blocks, but each of those blocks is made of about 8 to 10 different sections. And we got to see some sections of other ships that are still to be assembled, and blocks sitting outside in the yard ready to go into the assembly dock once the Destiny had moved out. So that was really interesting. But the sections themselves, they can do 25 to 35 a week will come off the line. And then once they have all of the blocks assembled, they can add about 1 block a day. They can lift it and put it into place in the assembly dock. So it takes a little bit more than 3 months to assemble a ship like the Destiny.
Tell them what you learned about the tolerances.
Oh my goodness.
So we talk about the ship is built in segments, right? And then it's all assembled together. But the level of precision involved.
So from the original designs, those original ship blueprints, they can only have a 20 millimeter variance in the final product for the whole ship. So
Incredible.
that is less than an inch. So like it's not even like, oh, this stateroom could be off by half an inch. No. The whole ship can be off by less than an inch. And one way that they are able to stick to those variances is because they rely so heavily on robots and lasers. So when they're assembling things, the steel is incredibly heavy. They let me hold, or attempt to hold, a very small piece of the thinnest steel they use to build the ship. And everyone in our group could barely keep it. Philip had to kind of like hold it like when you give your kids something heavy to hold and mom and dad still have the hands on it.
Break,
like that kind of thing. So it's incredibly heavy. So they don't use workers to drag this steel out and flip it over and all of that stuff. It's all automated with robot procedures, which makes it safer and more efficient. And all that cutting is done with lasers, all of the shaving down to make sure everything is absolutely the right size, again, done with lasers. And they actually, about 20 years ago, really invested in their technology to be able to make this happen with these bigger ships on tighter timelines. And they use something called laser hybrid welding. So if you're thinking about welding something traditionally, you would weld it on one side, flip it over, weld the other side. This laser hybrid welding is stronger and faster. You don't have to flip it over. You weld it one time, it goes all the way through, and it's perfect. So that really helps them keep everything exactly as it's meant to be. And even later on in the process, like when HVAC's being installed, for instance, there are workers who are manually doing this with these sections and blocks. They have little tiny laser robots to help them get all of their welding perfect.
We don't want to give the impression that this whole process is automated. There are a lot of humans who have unique skills that are doing this, but the innovation and the investment from Meyer Werft is figuring out what are the jobs that take a craftsman, a tradesman to complete versus what are the things that we can automate, what are the things where we can use mechanical assists, that sort of hybrid approach to their manufacturing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of this also comes down to the safety and the stability of the ship, and that's something you want to make sure 100%. Is 100% intact.
Yeah.
Something else that I found really interesting was so Danny was talking about the sea trials, and at the end of the sea trial, Disney actually takes ownership of the ship. Well, again, because they've been working together so long and they know what Disney knows what Meyer Werf needs, Meyer Werf knows what Disney needs, they actually kind of take over parts of the ship a little bit earlier than that. So when I was on board, the Walt Disney Theater was completely done. They had frozen set pieces in there. There was like a tech rehearsal happening. They were setting light cues and things like that. Because Disney has way more elaborate stage shows than many of the other cruise lines, they need to get into that space and start rehearsing, start installing the fly wires and the lighting kits and all of that. So Meyer Werft has already kind of handed that area over to Disney, and it's all Disney people in there doing their jobs at this point.
If I can tag on to that, one thing that Steph learned from the shipyard is, so we know that Disney Theatrical is a huge part of the cruising experience, right? The big Broadway style shows that they do every night. In order to get the set pieces, or like think about on the Treasure, there's the giant Tafiti. You can't just load her in through the atrium and walk her down a hallway to the theater.
It's true.
So
Yeah.
there's actually an external door in the hull of the ship that is in line with the performance space. And they can open that externally and load in these giant set pieces. It's the only way, like otherwise they'd have to break them down into tiny little pieces to go up the gangway and through the halls, and it's just not practical.
And that's also kind of a lead into another thing that I learned. So we talked about Meyer Werf doesn't build the entire ship. The sign comes from somewhere else. But there is also a ton of stuff that I believe is called owner furnished equipment that Claire was telling us about. So this is everything from treadmills to coffee machines to linens to food to beverage dispensers, everything that isn't like glued down to the ship essentially, or that is very artwork, things that are like very specific to that cruise line, not just to Disney, but they have to bring in the cappuccino makers, right? So they have to bring all of the costumes in, all of the set pieces in, even I don't know when you're thinking about the like set pieces and pennants and flags and stuff that they wave around for the sail away parties. That all has to be brought in by Disney.
That's amazing. I love all these little details and facts. There's a couple of different directions we can go with this, but this is a really good segue into to Danny's experience visiting
about entertainment.
the entertainment side of this. And by the way, the whole, as you're talking about the way that this is constructed, I'm picturing the most complicated game of 3D Tetris that is imaginable.
It basically is.
Yeah,
you need people who are
in many
super
ways
skilled.
you're right.
Yeah, it's like
they
math
have
and
laser
science.
guides to show you exactly where the Tetris pieces need to go. So it's a bit of a cheat code.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's a very complex game without help. And it's not this is not a challenge, but we want this to be as easy as possible for those constructing it. So it's still incredible to think about it. So Danny, tell me a little bit about your experience getting to see, I know it's sort of like a behind the scenes look at this rehearsal of Hercules, which is that new Broadway style stage show coming to the Disney Destiny. You didn't go as far as Germany. You went all the way to Toronto. But
All the way to
that experience?
Toronto, my home city, born and raised. So this was a really cool experience. I was really grateful to get to go backstage. I was with a small group, some Disney outlets, a lot of theater outlets were there as well, because Disney Theatrical, the live entertainment that they do on the ships, is something that the cruise line is renowned for. And compared to other ships, Disney does really perform it at a different caliber. So, in order to make that happen, they have an on-land rehearsal facility that happens to be in Toronto, Canada. It's this really amazing place. It's in the basement of the CBC building. The CBC, for any of your listeners who maybe aren't Canadian, is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. It's public television, radio. It's broadcast in English and French all across the country. And the CBC building in Toronto is a full-on production studio. They do radio broadcasts. They film television shows there. It's a purpose-built building. And below the CBC building, it actually extends down to B4. And Disney occupies the underground portion of this building. And despite the fact that it's underground, it's this massive, massive facility that has 30 and 40-foot high ceilings. And they are able to have full replicas of the performing spaces. At any given time, they will have multiple crews rehearsing for upcoming Disney sailings. When we visited, there were 5 separate casts getting ready for the various ships that are in the Disney fleet. There was the inaugural cast rehearsing for the Adventure, the inaugural cast rehearsing for the Destiny, and then 3 other casts who are going to be the relief when they trade out who's performing on the other ships in the fleet. And so they have all of these spaces, and there's a space dedicated to fly rigs. Disney does a lot of theatrical flying, whether it's on the deck shows like the Pirate Night performances, or in the theater for I think it's Believe.
Yeah,
some of the characters do flying. So the actors, they take flying classes on land, and they learn the ins and outs, and all the equipment is the same.
Puppetry classes.
Puppetry classes, flying classes. It's a one-stop shop because your performers on your Disney Cruise Line ship, they're not just your entertainment in the theater, they're also doing the deck parties, they're doing the Pirate Night entertainment. Some of them are the musical acts in the lounge. There's an a cappella group that you've seen performing in lounge spaces and stuff. They're members of the ensemble of the live entertainment.
And the facility is huge. The building is a full city block on every side, right?
Yeah.
It's its own little island.
So it's this like theatrical wonderland. And so at any given time, there's a bunch of different casts, and they're learning what Disney calls a track. Each performer has a track. So a track is your specific set of songs, of moves, of dances that you do, not just in any one show, but across all your performances on the ship. So we got to come and check out Hercules in rehearsal, and we got to see a few different parts of it. We first got to go and learn about some of the musical influences to the show. So it's the music that you know and love from the 90s animated movie. There are a little bit of updates to in order to make this more of a stage feel, they've re-recorded the music. They've added a huge orchestra. The music director for the show, he talked a lot about adding in sort of 90s R&B hip hop influences. And you'll recognize the songs immediately from the movie, but they have been freshened up, let's say. Little tweaks, little
Grammy version.
Exactly. So we learned about the music. One very cool note, and this is a detail that's been released before, but originally in the film, there was a song called Shooting Star. I believe it's a ballad between Herc and Megara. And for various reasons during production of the film, it was cut. But they have the original music, and it's been restored for this version that we're going to see on the Disney Destiny. So that's a lovely sort of touchstone to the original film. After we learned about the music, we got to try our best at some of the show choreography. The show directors were there, the choreographer was there. They got our group of Disney journalists and Broadway people, and they had us in a dance studio, mirrors on the wall, the whole bit, and they did their best to teach us an 8 count, so 2 bars of choreography. We started with the intro of Zero to Hero, learning the choreography that the muses are going to perform while they're singing the song.
And then the muses showed you how it's really done.
Yes, and then after we stumbled through it as best we could, then they brought out the performers who are going to be the muses, and they actually ran that whole number for us, Zero to Hero. They're not in full costumes or anything, but we got to see a full run through with the cast, and it's, like, in a word, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Everything I hear about all the performances is that, especially including from those who don't often frequent Disney, is that it's like going to see a Broadway show, that they're at such a high caliber of
It is,
entertainment.
and if you look at the people involved in the productions, you look at the directors, the choreographers, the set designers, their credits. They've got Broadway credits, they've got London West End credits, even Toronto. I mean, Toronto is maybe not on the same size and scale of New York or London when it comes to live theater, but at least in Canada, it's the center of live theater for the country
Mhm.
as well. And that's why, because I asked Disney, I said, why Toronto? That seems like an odd, you think they would rehearse closer to the ships, but Toronto was chosen strategically for its connection to New York and Chicago and all of these other cities
It's
that
only a few
have,
hours to London. Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
these cities that have these performing arts focuses, and there's talent that you can draw on there.
Yeah. Everything at Disney is so intentional.
Exactly. And then the other part of the day, then we had a break for lunch. And then the other part of the day, and this was the most interesting to me, was we got to do a hands-on puppetry class.
Oh, that's cool.
Like many of the Disney shows, when you're bringing to life these IP characters, it's not always feasible for it to be a human performer, or it has more impact if it's a human doing puppetry. We see this all the time in the Disney shows, like in Frozen. There's puppetry for Sven, there's puppetry for Olaf, there's also puppetry for young Anna and Elsa.
mhm.
Moana that we mentioned, that Tafiti puppet is the showstopper.
Even in the parks, though, when you're thinking about something like Finding Nemo the musical or the Little Mermaid show that's at Hollywood Studios, right?
Mhm.
Where this is all puppets.
It's a storytelling device. It allows us to take these, animated characters from the films and bring them into our real world, but keep that mystical element to them, or that fantastical
Mhm.
element to them.
So you got to pilot a Hydra.
Yeah, so we got to go hands on with the puppets. The puppets that they have in Toronto are what they call rehearsal puppets. So they're the same size, the same weight, have all the same controls, but they don't have all of the fit and finish of the show puppets. They're maybe not fully painted, or they're missing some of the special effects. Um, so the Hydra, if you remember from the film Hercules, his battle with the Hydra is this pivotal story moment. It's where he's trying to prove that he's a hero and he can protect the city, and so it's also a pivotal moment in the stage show. And Disney has designed it's going to be a mix of practical puppets and projected on screen, because the whole thing with the Hydra is you cut off one head and two more take its place.
Or
So in
three.
order, is it three? I thought it was two.
I don't know. I got to brush up on my Greek mythology.
Anyway, in order to sell that illusion of this multiplying thing, it's a mix of puppets and projections. The puppets, there are sort of lead Hydra heads, if you will, and they're all managed by performers on stage. You get strapped into this backpack system. Disney called it an exo frame, and so it goes on like a backpack, and it's got chest straps and stabilizers, and then there's a pole that extends up from behind your head that the Hydra is suspended from. Then the human puppeteer is sort of inside the neck of the Hydra, so you don't see them. And operating the handles are inside the jaw, and so the puppeteer can turn the puppet left and right and up and down. You can open and close the jaw, and move it around. And they just tossed us into the Hydra rig. It was incredible. We got a crash course in, here are the controls. It's all very manual, and it's heavy, but it's supported through this frame system. So, you can still just sort of push and pull and move the head around. These things weigh about 30 pounds, give or take, just the head itself with the jaws. But you can operate them one-handed and sort of turn them and move them and make the jaws go up and down and chomp. And they gave us a crash course in how do you put life into a puppet? How do you make it so that the puppet's eyes are making eye contact with the audience as opposed to your eyes? Like, how do you direct the line of sight? How do you make it so that the puppet is alive and breathing on stage, not just sitting there?
Mhm.
It was really remarkable.
That is so cool to get to puppet that. And I know that's going to be an impressive thing to see in person. So another reason for people to book any itinerary with the Disney Destiny. And it's like I said, I mean, you could book them now because as early as if we're recording this, at least 2 months from now, it's going to be out and taking guests, and so it'll be something that'll be a part of the fleet that you can go and experience. I think that there's obviously a lot. If we were to have a comprehensive discussion of everything you learned, I know we would be sitting here for hours. So
Hours.
I'm going to broadly ask and then have some wrap up questions. But before we move into some wrap up questions, is there anything else that you learned or saw or experienced that we haven't covered that you think would be interesting for listeners to hear more about?
I have a few cute Imagineering details
let's
that I
hear
want to
them.
share. So, one, in Cask and Cannon, and your viewers or your listeners might already know about this because Disney did announce some of this at Destination D23. But in Cask and Cannon, the ceiling is all based on the original Mark Davis artwork for Pirates of the Caribbean. And it has some little touches where they've updated it to include like Lookout Key and Castaway Key. There's also a set of drawers attached to the bar that have different destination names on them, and some of them are just pirate sounding things, but some of them are things like Blue Bayou. So I think that if you're a big Pirates fan, that is just beautiful, and like that ceiling is one of the most beautiful ceilings I've ever seen in my life. And I hope that people take the time when they're having a pint in the pub to like look up and enjoy that because it's just so beautiful. In the Grand Hall, it's all themed around Black Panther and the Wakanda kind of aesthetic. So they have all of these different textures that are like Wakanda textiles. They have these like sconces almost on the wall that are supposed to be inspired by the warriors' spears for
The Dora Milaje.
the Dora Milaje in Wakanda. They have these beautiful pillars that come up to the roof, and they're so intricately designed, and it's supposed to be like Queen Ramonda's crown. And it's just very, very beautiful in there. It's also the first time that they're going to integrate some really comprehensive lighting in the Grand Hall. So in the classic ships, there's always a chandelier. It's an iconic chandelier. And they can take the lights down overall and up because they do some shows in the atrium. But on the Wish, there is a lovely Cinderella inspired chandelier, and there's a whole Kiss Goodnight thing that happens around midnight where it lights up and plays a little song. On the Treasure, there's all of these different lanterns, and they do different things or turn different colors. But on the Destiny, you're actually going to have lights that are integrated around each level of the balconies that kind of overlook into the Grand Hall, as well as up around the proscenium arch, around the stage there, and all the way up towards the ceiling. And they're going to really use that for show elements. They're going to do a lot of stuff in the atrium. I don't even know what it all is, but they're going to have a lot of meet and play experiences, some in the atrium, some in other places, but there will be times when maybe Cruella de Vil or Loki or somebody else who has a very strong color palette comes into the atrium and the whole vibe will really change. And that really reminds me of what they used to do on Star Cruiser when there were these different show moments when everybody came together in the atrium of that ship. So I'm really looking forward to. I did see the lights on, but only in their like normal like white mode.
Daytime.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing all the ways that they can transform that space.
One thing that Disney has been teasing to us about the Destiny that will be different from existing Disney Cruise Line ships is the ability to sort of play and interact with the characters. I know the ship
More than just a photo op.
yeah, more than your traditional character meet and greet where you do a hug and a photo and you chat for a little bit. They're bringing characters that we've not had a chance to meet before, different heroes, different villains, and there seems to be this real emphasis on creating these opportunities for you to interact, have little story moments, and I think that is really unique for the guest experience.
My last point is something that Claire told us when we were touring the staterooms, and she was explaining all of the artwork that goes in the staterooms. So there's different, some rooms have Mulan or Raya or Hercules artwork, and the over the bed painting is kind of a comic book inspired kind of scene of dark and light, but not, there is a villain, but not necessarily like doing something super bad because they don't want to freak kids out when they're going to sleep. And then the other artwork is more like comic book sketch panels that's over the couch that would all fit that theme. But when she was telling us about that, she really pointed out that every single thing on the ship is so intentional, and people are going to notice things like these big lighting changes, or the hydras in the show, but that everything is so intentionally crafted. People might not pay attention to the stateroom artwork or the maquettes and sketches that are on display in 1923, or maybe even little details that are integrated in the carpet or a hidden detail in the background of the Sanctum bar or the DeVille's bar. But there are so many little things that if you are especially into Disney history, Disney Imagineering, looking for all those little details is really what brings the ship to life, which I think is also true in the parks. You're going to see Space Mountain, but then you're going to, hear Sunny Eclipse singing in the background, and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely in Tomorrowland right now, right? And she really wanted to hammer home that it's not just the big stuff, it's really the little stuff, and that there's so much to offer there. And I could not agree with that more.
Imagineers know how to increasingly make things layered, and it seems like they're definitely taking some cues from Galactic Star Cruiser with the interactions with characters. It might not be to the same impact, and it's perhaps not going to have the same.
It's not one continuous storyline,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But it's trying to go beyond just a regular character moment, trying to let you interact more, play more, get lost in a story a bit.
It's optional, right? If you just want to go to the spa or be on the pool deck, you can do that and not interact there at all. But it's also really nice because these kinds of things already happen in the Oceaneer Club for kids, but I can't go play with Stitch or Thor or whatever and do a mission together, right? But this is my chance to
I love it.
help Spidey and T'Challa save the day.
That's so cool. So again, we obviously could talk about every single detail. I think this gives listeners a good taste of all the decision making, or a lot of the decision making that went into this ship and what we can expect. So a couple of wrap up questions for this. First of all, what are each of you personally looking forward to experiencing the most once the ship sets sail? And you get to, of course, experience it in person on an itinerary. And the second part of that is, what do you think most guests will enjoy the most? That's perhaps different from it sounds like the character interaction would be one of those things, but anything else that you think guests might enjoy?
I'll go first. So I am most interested to see Hercules come to life. I really got very excited with the glimpses that I saw. And, I want to be able to see that evolution from the rehearsal process, from the partially finished props, to seeing this whole thing come together. I have a bit of a theater background, not as a performer, but professionally. I used to work in the industry, and to me, it's such a highlight of the Disney experience. And then having this opportunity to go backstage and talk to the creators and see the making of, I am most excited. When I get to go on my sailing, I will be lined up to be front and center for my seat for Hercules for sure. What I think guests can look forward most to is, I think they can look forward most to characters that they don't usually get to interact with. Especially for those villains diehards out there, they're really going to get some opportunity to, not just see the villains in a stage show. They're going to get to interact and get up close. And I know that's a thrill. There's a lot of villain fans out there that feel underserved. And I think this ship is going to have a big payoff for them. But not just the villains, other hero characters too, but I think they're bringing a unique mix to the Destiny of characters that maybe you've seen a little bit in the parks, but you probably haven't gotten this much interaction with.
Yeah. The thing that I think that guests are going to go wild over that I don't think a lot of people are paying that much attention to right now is Pride Land's Feast of the Lion King. Back in April, we actually had a little bit of a preview of some of the entertainment, but also the food, and the food is outstanding, especially if you like Boma, Chico, Tusker House, the Mara, Sanaa at Walt Disney World. I think you're going to be very well served by the food, but it's Disney Cruise Line, so they will also have some less adventurous, more normal things for people to enjoy as well. But everybody loves The Lion King. It's one of the most popular, enduringly popular Disney shows of all time. And I think having that dinner theater kind of atmosphere where you're getting to hear all the songs and the lighting around you is changing and whatever. I think that that is going to be a huge, huge highlight. I know people love Coco, Plaza de Coco, and Arendelle, a Frozen Dining Adventure, but like if you're not a Frozen fan or you're not a Princess fan, you probably don't care about Arendelle. I care about it deeply. I wish all of my dinners could be there, but I've never met anyone who's like, oh, a Lion King, whatever. Everybody loves the Lion King, right? What I'm most excited about is Marvel stuff. Actually, I love comic books. I love all the Marvel movies. And so being able to interact with Spidey or Black Panther or who knows who, I'm a big Loki fan, so he's going to be on the ship for sure. I can't wait to go see what they do with the Sanctum. I got a backstage look at how it's coming together and it looks beautiful, but I don't know if there's going to be any like special Imagineering special effects in there. I'm hoping there's going to be. But I can't wait to see that. And just to see how they kind of tie all of those things in. And Marvel is going to be a huge part of this. The Stern characters, Spider-Man with the Spider Bots, they're all beach ready. It's very cool. I'm assuming that the artwork will have a very heavy comic bend. So on the Treasure, there, like everything is very adventure exploration based. On the Wish, it's very regal and princessy fairy tale based. So I'm assuming we're going to see a lot of comic book inspired artwork, which I can't wait to see.
That'll be incredible. And all of this, I think, gives listeners who haven't heard you on the show before. Steph, you've been on the show twice now. Dan, you've been on the show once before. But this is just a tip of the iceberg for the content that's offered through WDW Magazine and DLR Magazine. I know there's so many acronyms we could go down the list.
All the magazines.
Yeah. Which, again, I've said many, many times, but I love being a freelance writer for both WDW Magazine and DLR Magazine. In fact, I was so proud to have the cover article for this past month. Yeah. Again, it was my second time getting the cover article. I was like, yeah, that's great. I love having mine featured in the front of the magazine. But all the articles are so well researched, and it comes from the experiences that you two have and the rest of the team has. Mm-hmm. At media previews or just going out and about and exploring and learning and talking to people and to Imagineers and to creators that are in the Disney space. There's so much that you all put into it. So I want to make sure that people know where to go and what content you have lined up for magazine subscribers that relates to the Disney Destiny or anything else that you want to share in terms of content coming down the pipeline.
Thanks, Matt. Sure. So our home online, you can find us at wdw-magazine.com. That's the best place to start. You'll find the links to all of our social media channels. You'll be able to preview our magazine, look at all the things we have on offer.
And read all of our online articles. We have 3, 4, 5 different free online articles going up a day on the website that are not things that go in our magazine. Everything in our magazine is exclusive to there. But that's also where you can find out about our digital or print WDW magazine, DLR magazine, or next year, DCL magazine subscriptions.
So exciting.
Which we call memberships. So if you see the term membership, that's what that means.
We love to celebrate. We're here to cover all things Disney. We cover parks, experiences, cruise line, Disney products, Disney animation. Like,
It's all Disney all the time.
it's all Disney all the time. And, we do WDW Magazine is, of course, focused on the parks in Florida, DLR Magazine focused on the original parks in California. But, we cross over and we cover as much as we can. And over the years, our audience has been telling us that they want more cruise.
And we're giving it to
we're
them.
giving it to them. It's a
I
big
love
effort
it.
to get a magazine, printed and out the door. But we are getting ready starting next year. DCL magazine is going to be available for a recurring subscription.
And we are actually going to be talking about the Destiny in the November issue of WDW Magazine this year. We're going to have a number of pieces next year in our first issue of DCL Magazine of 2026, which will come out in the early middle winter. So a bunch of different things in there. We also have for our later in the year DCL Magazine issue another Destiny / Meyer Werft kind of article planned. Danny has two different articles coming up, one for DCL Magazine and one for WDW Magazine, about both Hercules and Disney's Broadway at Sea live entertainment portfolio.
There's lots of great stuff coming up. Steph and I, we're genuine Disney fans. Everyone on our team, really, they have that passion and that love for the Disney experience. And we all just want to get a little bit deeper and, explore and learn more about these things. And that's really what funnels or what fuels, I should say, the content in the magazine.
It's great.
So again, your listeners, if you're looking to find us, wdw-magazine.com. That's our home base. From there, you'll be able to find everything we do. And we really hope you check us out.
Yeah, I've been talking about this for a long time. And for the last year, we've had or year and a half now, we've had a code for listeners of this show, thanks to the two of you, which is just very easy. Code Skyway, which gets you 15% off in the shop. So make sure you take advantage of that, and it's a good opportunity to get ready for a DCL magazine. I actually literally have top of my pile right here. The you can't see it because it's blurred, but the Disney Cruise Line special you ran through WDW magazine, and it's a good taste, I think, of what's going to be offered. And if you are a Disney Cruise Line fan, it's worth looking into.
We're almost sold out. We've sold 5,000 copies now, which is why we're moving ahead with the membership next year. We do have a few left in our store. So for any of your listeners who are on the fence about getting that first copy, I would go get it now.
Time is of the essence.
Yeah, we don't do reprints, so once those magazines are sold, they're sold. But there's always new stuff coming out.
It's part of our digital edition as well.
That's true.
There you
can
go.
Always get it through the digital edition.
Yeah.
But we're really proud of these products that we make. We all put a lot of time and effort into them, and we know that the readers, if they just open up a cover, we're confident that everyone's going to find something to love inside.
Oh, yeah, I can definitely attest to that as a reader myself, in addition to being a writer. But Steph, Danny, thank you so much again for coming on the show. This was a fascinating conversation, and I look forward to having you both again in the future. Yeah,
always a pleasure. We'll come back anytime you call us.
Sounds good. Welcome back to Imagination Central. Before you exit this episode, remember to follow Imagination Skyway on social media and share the show with anyone who might enjoy listening to our program. For ad-free episodes and bonus content, create a free account or sign up for a premium subscription at patreon.com/Imagination Skyway. When you're ready for your next vacation, remember that listeners of Imagination Skyway can get rewarded for booking a trip to Disney in 2025 through KMV Travel. Simply fill out the form at kmvtravel.com/Skyway and make sure that you select Imagination Skyway under the How Did You Hear About Us question to be eligible for a special gift from the team. Terms and conditions apply. As you disembark, please remember to remain fully seated until the podcast comes to a complete stop, then gather your belongings and watch your head and step as you exit. Thank you for joining me aboard Imagination Skyway, and remember, if we can dream it, we can do it.